Well, hello, Internet. It's Reese coming at you with another car vid, my crappy phone. And I'm driving north on a beautiful early evening in West Nebraska. As you've got the really awful glare coming in there from the setting sun. Sorry. Came here today to talk about culture war. Alright? And I know there's been a whole mess of people taking sides about this, and some people don't think it matters. So I want to go and spend some talking about it. Because it's not like some folks think it is, you see. Two sides, or two main sides of this culture war. And they really boil down to one concept, right? Is there or is there not such a thing as transcendent truth? And what I mean when I say transcendent truth, I'm talking about a truth that exists outside of our universe. That our universe is built upon this truth, and the truth is greater than the whole place. Right? There's more to it than our physical reality. And some folks hold the other view, that there is no such thing as truth, that there's only accurate for a particular situation, but there's no truth per se. Now, of course, saying that there's no truth is a truth, self-defeating thing. It doesn't rhetorically hold to itself, but let's look beyond that for a moment. If we, as humans, are responsible to truth, right, then we each have to live in a way that harmonizes with this transcendent truth as best as we can. That would indicate that we have some choice in the matter. Because if there's truth and there's falseness, we can choose to live however we choose to live. And that's the big debate, you know. That assumption of free will is this, all language holds this assumption, all of theory holds this assumption. It's a given, right? However, if there is no transcendent truth, then there is no moral right and wrong, right? Because it's all circumstantial, sort of, kind of. There's no bottom to things. There's no reason to live one way or the other. But almost nobody can be consistent with the idea that there is no right and wrong, right? Everybody gets mad when they've been wronged, and or feel vindicated when they're proven right, or feel pompous or puffed up about being right, you know, however it is, or even just pleased in the correctness of their statement. Our language, our idioms are all built on this concept of it being a right and a wrong, or legal structure assumes a right and a wrong. If there's no ultimate right and wrong, if there's no ultimate standard, then murder can't be wrong, and stealing can't be wrong, and dishonesty can't be wrong, because there's no accountability for those things. There's no rigor in those things. They just exist. You're not breaking the great cosmic rule to steal from somebody if there's no truth, see? I want to call this video Culture War, You're Doing It Wrong. Because it's not enough to just stand up there and proclaim the rightness of something, or to call people out for violating a rule, right? If it's an assumption that there is a right and wrong, that there is an absolute truth to things, it's far more average, far more normal for somebody to not live up to the standard of perfect rightness. See? Do not live up to the standard of perfect rightness. And so with that, you have the whole concept, the whole idea that people fail to live up to it doesn't alleviate the standard. And it's not enough if all of us fail to live up to it. It's not enough to just call out when somebody does fail to live up to the standard. Now, it's not to say you can't call your buddies and say, hey man, you're being salty or whatever. That would make sense, but to be wrong is to be expected if there's a moral absolute. See, to be an error or even straight out sinful is the expectation rather than the rule, when there are moral rules, right? Because it's plain to see that it's much easier to get a thing wrong than right. It's much easier to trip than to walk correctly. It's far easier to fall than to stand. It's far easier to not know a thing than to not know a thing than to know a thing. We would expect those things if the world had a true and a right. Now, I've been a fan, that's what it comes down to. I've been a fan of Doug TenNapel for many, many years. And it strikes me that there are people claiming in utter ignorance that he is somehow just a part of the indie comics movement to score a quick buck, or that he's not really about the culture war. And that's crazy talk, because Doug has been out on the fringes of the culture war proclaiming the idea that there is truth, proclaiming the idea that there is heroism because there is an absolute truth. He's been out there saying that stuff for decades, since the 80s. These video games are about the idea of transcendent truth. His TV shows presume a transcendent truth. In his speech online, he spouts out what he believes to be the truth. Even his take on the idea that he's just saying that homosexuality is in fact a sin as described in the Bible. That is a statement about absolute truth. Not a statement about the value of people. He's got some great gay friends. He's got associates and folks that don't agree with his take on this moral stand. If you're going to stand there and say that Doug is not a culture warrior because he doesn't want to wear the hat you think is so important, that's crazy talk. It's nuts. Doug has been a culture warrior since before there was this glut of YouTube Indiegogos. Call it what you will. He's been out there taking bumps and blows and people, misappropriating and falsely stating his arguments since the 1980s. Late 80s. 88, 89, something like that. He's been out there arguing and fighting with the social justice types, those false-faced fascist, life-wrecking folk, the mentally dishonest, tricks with their minds against their own subconscious desires, all of that stuff. Those guys, he's been taking the brunt of it, man. Doug TenNapel was on the fringe, on the edge, on the leading edge of the new dark age, fighting it off, fending it off, since before there was a Comics Gate movement, whatever you want to call it. And he'll be fighting the fight after that movement and that hashtag have died down. Because truth's forever. Slogans are not. Now, I know some people might accuse me of just being a Doug fanboy, and I suppose there's some truth to that. But when you see the way he interacts with folks, when you see the way that the fans that are willing to talk things out with him, how forthright he is about stuff, how not cagey he is about stuff. We see people that made the acquaintance of folks that have met Doug in person, who know the kind of heart he has for people. If you think you're going to attack Doug TenNapel on his credos, on his bona fides as a culture warrior, man, you're missing the boat. He's been at it, faithfully at it, since before you were in short pants, bucko. He was out of the closet talking about conservative values and classical, the good, the true, and the beautiful in comics. Back when certain other creators were still sucking off the corporate teat. Back when other creators were helping ruin the X-Men. Doug's out there talking about the true and the beautiful. About how art informs us about God and how God informs us about art. That's the real deal, man. That's what it's about. You can't see that. Guess I'm just sorry.